This video is sponsored by ExpressVPN. Go to expressvpn.com/browntable for 3 months of free protection with a 1-year package. Welcome back to Browntable. As you can see, that is a new camera lens, so everything is a little bit wider. And that's all the news I have for you today. So if you haven't been paying attention on Twitter, on Reddit, everywhere honestly, there's this ongoing argument of what's better, the Raimi Spider-Man films or the MCU Spider-Man films. And I don't know if you've noticed, but nobody ever talks about the Amazing Spider-Man films. Why is that? It's obviously because they're better than both. The Cosmonaut Variety Hour made this video called The Amazing Spider-Man is Worse Than You Remember. No, it's not. It's way better. The Amazing Spider-Man 2, on its own, is easily one of the best pieces of cinema. And we should celebrate that. We should celebrate the film. So that's what I'm going to do here. Today, we're going to be talking about The Amazing Spider-Man 2. So the movie starts with the Sony logo, and immediately, Sony has to pander to the Raimi fans by giving them the Torch Lady. If you didn't know, every Spider-Man film made by Sam Raimi had this Torch Lady, pandering. So the movie actually begins, and we get to see a zoom out of a ticking clock, and we see its gears turning. This is already alluding to the end of the film, and that's already genius. You know what we should do? We should put a genius counter up there and count how many times this movie does something absolutely brilliant. We also get some intense pausing right before clicking delete. And I love this. It's so relatable. It's something we all do in our daily lives, like right before we click delete on our hidden folder in the desktop, you know what I'm saying? Haha. So the scientist gets locked out of his office and his computer, and he decides to make a run for it and leaves his job, which is Oscorp. He then decides to abandon his son Peter and take a trip to Hawaii. Sadly for the scientist dude, the co-pilot is against child neglect, so they start to fight.
Not if you thought you could escape.
Richard!
Oh, I forgot to tell you guys, the scientist dude is actually James Bond, and this is a James Bond movie. Eventually, the plane crashes, killing the cameraman. Flash forward to the present, Peter Parker is now Spider-Man, and he can not only swing, but he can also fly. We all know this because he's skydiving out of literally nowhere. And I applaud Mark WEBB for giving Spider-Man the ability to fly, because honestly, web wings are not a good look. Just let him fly, dude. So the movie keeps on going, and Spider-Man is swinging around with some dope music in the background. Listen, Raimi fans. You know your little Spider-Man theme by Raimi and Danny Elfman? Yeah, how do you sing that? Da, 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 da.
No.
Check out Hans Zimmer's theme. It's automatically better because he did music on The Dark Knight. It's like epic fanfare. It doesn't sound like Super Bowl music at all. We then get introduced to the greatest Spider-Man villain of all time, and why should I introduce him when he introduces himself? If you thought Dr. Octopus was good, the Green Goblin was good, hell, Vulture was good, you're about to cry. Because this is what a good Spider-Man villain looks like. So let's make this a little fun, okay? Mauricio's tips to creating the perfect supervillain. Step 1. Make him outrageous. Step 2. Make him drive like a maniac, and he has to be yelling. Step 3. His body has to be covered in tattoos. Now, who did I just describe? That's right, the Joker in another masterpiece film called Suicide Squad. That's why their Joker came out so well. They copied The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Paul Giamatti made this film. Hashtag Oscar for Giamatti. Afterwards, we cut to Max Dillon, who, to me, is my self-insert character.
Excuse me. There's more room on the sideline, folks, please.
I identify with Max so much. He's so relatable to me. His awkwardness, his haircut. I mean, hell, when he talks to himself, you know? Yeah, that was a good take. I'm gonna use that take. So one of Spider-Man's character traits is that he makes jokes while fighting. And of course, what that means is he makes jokes at the expense of innocent people getting plowed by a runaway truck. It's so realistic to me how Spider-Man knows that he can't save everyone. He doesn't even try. So, he decides to save the one life he knows he can save. And that's Max Dillon's.
Heads up, watch out!
Also, let's add some more points to the movie for being really dark, grounded, and real, which is what we've all been looking for in our superhero movies, because Spider-Man doesn't even try to help the taxi driver who is obviously injured. Eventually, Alexei stops the truck, and his two cronies decide to shoot at the cops, and for some reason, no cops can shoot two dudes that aren't behind cover. The police are incredibly inefficient. That's why we have Spider-Man.
Hands up!
So eventually, Spider-Man collects all the containers of orange jello, and one of the containers of jello comes alive, and he lures Spider-Man into his trap, and Spider-Man gets hit by a car. Did you know that the orange jello is actually one of Spider-Man's greatest villains, and they fought occasionally in multiple issues? While all this is happening, there's a graduation going on, and Gwen Stacy delivers a very motivational speech, which does not foreshadow anything at all.
I know we all think that we're immortal. What makes life valuable is that it doesn't last forever.
Totally not heavy-handed. Spider-Man is chasing down Alexei, and he decides to unleash his ultimate move, and moves faster than the speed of light to stop a bus from crashing. And finally, justice prevails, and Spider-Man is able to defeat Alexei by harassing him. Is this harassment? Anyways, Peter eventually makes it to graduation and does not give a single flying fuck. He kept his mask on, and now
I think I know that guy.
his secret is compromised. But that's so cool because it's so funny and realistic. Like, come on, you really think no one's ever seen Peter changing into Spider-Man? I mean, come on, man. Think. Anyways, this is the scene of the movie where you realize that this is the Peter Parker from the comics. Peter Parker was never a meek, nerdy dude. He's always been a Chad! And this Chad is running late to graduation, decides to kiss his girlfriend on stage, high-fives the principal. What a savage. If I'm being completely honest, what would have made this movie is if they cast Jake or Logan Paul as Peter Parker. That would have been perfect casting. So Peter and Gwen get a little spicy and awkward, and eventually Peter sees Gwen's dad again. Because of this, Peter decides that a dead man's ghost is more important to him than a loving relationship, and he decides to break up with Gwen. For a second time.
Shut up.
What do you say?
I can't see you anymore. Can't. I'm sorry, Gwen.
Oh wait, actually,
I break up with you. I break up with you.
so Peter decides to get together with Gwen, and break up with her, and then get back together with Gwen, and then break up with her again. Peter is such a player. So Player Man decides to swing around the city for a little bit and start saving a few lives, you know, because that's his job, and then eventually starts following Gwen Stacy, upgrading to Stalker Man. Also, Peter with the Spider-Man suit on almost gets caught by Aunt May, and he decides to stare at a briefcase. His father's briefcase. If you forgot the first movie, Peter was trying to uncover the secret of his father's disappearance, a totally necessary side plot which Peter dropped. We then get to the secondary antagonist of the movie because, as we all know, which is the main antagonist. And the secondary antagonist is Max Dillon, the guy Spider-Man saved. And before becoming Electro, he's a bit of a freak.
Spidey, how was your morning? Aces, Max. Aces.
And that's so great because honestly, who doesn't act like a stalker in their own home? I mean, come on. I relate to him so much. My room is filled with Spider-Man memorabilia all over the walls. It's totally relatable, man. What? What? Wait. That's not normal? We then get to know more about Peter and Aunt May's loving relationship, which is a relationship based on shouting.
Far into the shop. You're late.
I know.
Downstairs.
I can't.
Now. Hey, wait.
Doing my laundry.
No, I do the
college now. I think it's time that I took care of my own dirty underwear.
And red.
That was a mistake.
No.
I do, and I won't anymore. Forget it. Fine. Can I just do my? It's just underwear.
My home, my machine. Off. Eat your breakfast.
Max Dillon then makes his way to his job at Oscorp, where he meets, plot twist, Ryan from The Office.
I'm Spider-Man. Spidey.
This movie is so interconnected. This universe is bigger than you ever thought possible. Max Dillon then encounters Gwen Stacy in an elevator and decides to creepily talk about his hard-on for Spider-Man.
Spidey.
And we in this scene realize that what he cares about most is for people to notice him. He wants to be noticed. As if the plot wasn't convoluted enough, we have Peter's dad being James Bond, we have Peter breaking up with Gwen, Peter has to save the city as Spider-Man and is having a rough time doing so, and Max Dillon really loves Spider-Man. We add another side plot. Meet Melonhead. So Rich Boy goes to New York to meet his dying dad Norman, who is slowly becoming a scaly due to a condition called because the plot said so. Norman tells Harry that Harry is eventually going to die. So Norman gives Harry all his research to see if Harry can figure out the cure to stop transforming into a scaly. Max Dillon is then exploited by his own company like many people are in real life and has to work on his birthday of all days. He has to fix this random electrical problem, like a circuit is just like he has to push it back in. It's really weird. He gets electrocuted and dies. His dying body falls into an eel tank. But don't worry, because these eels are magic eels. So the eels really want to help Max out, and since his body's already dying, they decide to turn it blue with electricity, they make his eyes black, and they fix the gap in his teeth. Don't you just want an eel like that, honestly? Like, imagine you're having like a bad day with your teeth. You don't want to brush them because you don't have time. You just get an eel and just stick that in there and it cleans it. It fixes your teeth for you. Honestly, this movie's just amazing. Oh, just ding, right there, yeah? We then cut to Harry Osborn, who is now the CEO of Oscorp, and he reunites with his friend Peter Parker. And this gives us one of the best written and acted scenes in all of cinematic history.
I wanted to come and see how you're doing.
I'm with some people.
So then they start chatting, they chat up a storm, and eventually Peter gets asked a question, and I love this. He's asked, "Hey, do you have a girlfriend?" And he responds with,
That's a question. That's a question. Yeah. I don't know. It's complicated.
He's acting like there's a possibility that they could still be together. It's so gross. And that's what I love about Peter Parker, man. He's such a player. Peter Parker, more like Player Parker, am I right? Up top. Anyways, the movie should be called The Amazing Stalkers because there's a lot more stalking going on. Some Oscorp executive and some random bodyguard who I don't think he's ever named, starts spying on Harry and Peter. And then we cut to the antagonist, Max Dillon, who is revived with the power of dubstep. Max Dillon has pretty much turned into the human scab, because his whole body is just one giant scab. We then randomly cut to Peter, and he's getting a call from blonde Mary Jane. And after this, jaywalking ensues. Look at this Chad! He doesn't even care about a bus. That blue-collar worker having to deliver stuff on time, he doesn't care about side view mirrors. All he cares about is getting some sweet Emma Stone tonight. You know what I mean? Such a relatable hero. What I love about this movie is how they made Electro feel alive. And of course, Electro, since he's a being made out of electricity, he has to consume electricity to survive. Just like us humans, we're made of blood. We have to constantly drink human blood to stay alive as well. That's not just me, is it? So Electro decides to perform some kinky stuff by electrocuting himself. You know, he's really into BDSM like most people. But of course, the New York Police Department comes in and ruins the fun, like they usually do. Why can't a man just pleasure himself on the street? I mean, I do it all the time. It's not weird. I don't get it. Wait. So Electro has this random ability where he's able to use his electric powers to levitate objects, even though that makes absolutely no sense. But that's okay, because whenever something stupid happens in a comic book movie, all you have to say is, yeah, it's a comic book movie, and then everything is resolved. So Electro's surrounded by cops, and there just so happens to be this random cameraman with access to literally all of the Times Square billboards, because they start live streaming the footage, like it was Twitch. So Electro's getting turned on by seeing himself in pretty much a mirror, and he's getting even more turned on by having everyone seeing him getting turned on by seeing himself. So SpiderChad comes into the scene, and what proceeds is honestly One of the worst parts of the movie, sorry guys. Instead of immediately fighting Electro, he decides to talk him down? He decides to communicate with him? Like, what is this? Just fight him.
You don't know what's happening to you. I can see that you don't want to hurt anybody. You guys, no one shoots a mask.
So Electro gets shot, and we finally reveal the truth of the movie. The truth is, the movie's full title is The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Dubstep Unleashed. Then we get some actual lyrics to go along with the song, and it's supposed to be Max's internal dialogue, how he's talking to himself, his voice is in his head, and it's totally not cringy.
Shut up! You're so selfish.
Even though Electro's birthday was yesterday, it must be a really important day for him because he decides to say one of the most iconic lines in all of cinematic history.
It's my birthday. Now it's time for me to light my candles.
You thought dubstep was done? This movie is called Dubstep Unleashed for a reason. Eventually, SpiderChad lets a few people die before dousing Electro with water. We don't want people to actually think he's trying hard to be a hero, you know what I'm saying? So eventually, Peter goes home all depressed and sees his father's briefcase again, and decides to throw his magically disappearing suit over it. Peter then decides to listen to some Philip Phillips, and you know he's feeling really bad because Philip Phillips is something we all listen to when we want to feel pain. SpiderChad's going into masochist mode, it's really bad. Eventually, Peter gets some courage and decides to finally investigate the truth of his parents. A dark truth, which will lead him nowhere. Here's the biggest takeaway from this, right? James Bond is not a very smart person. Why? Because he wasn't using ExpressVPN, today's sponsor. See, if James Bond had only used ExpressVPN, he would have been able to roam the internet freely, without anyone tracking him using a virtual private network. I know what you're asking. What does ExpressVPN do? Well, here's the thing. It hides your IP address from crazy people that want to find you. It encrypts all your communications. And best of all, when you're browsing using ExpressVPN, no one will know what kinky websites you're looking into. So let's go and install this bad boy, shall we? So let's install it. Click that. Click that. Now we're installing and we have to set up our account. Once we do that, everything's set. Look at all these locations I can choose from. All I have to do is click this big button, and I am now secured when roaming the internet. A terrible thing that always happens is hacking, and people can steal your confidential information. So for less than $7 a month with a 30-day money-back guarantee, you can use ExpressVPN. So take back your internet privacy today and find out how to get 3 months free. 3 months free. That's actually a really good deal. Get 3 months free by going to expressvpn.com/browntable. That's expressvpn.com/browntable for 3 months free with a 1-year package. Link in the description below. Thanks ExpressVPN for being today's sponsor. Alright guys, that was the video. This was part 1. There's going to be a part 2 of the Amazing Spider-Man BIAM coming up, but that's not going to be very, very soon. I still have to write it, and I'm going to post a Logan video before that. But make sure to support the channel any way you can. Subscribe, you know, I have a Patreon. And of course, you can support the channel by wearing the merch. And this is the Uncommon shirt, which is now on the Teespring. That's also in the description below. And thank you guys so much for watching. Honestly, it's been a hassle of a month. I mean, I'm filming this right now. It's like what, 10 o'clock at night, I think. So it's like my eyes are already burning. I'm already exhausted. I've had computer animation homework, VFX homework, and I've had, you know, regular homework, and I've had to help out seniors with thesis because they let me on to animate, and then I have to do this channel. And then I have to work on Interstellar Ranger Commence, which is the series I'm working on. If you don't know what that is, I will inform you, but those who've watched Return to Zootopia know what I'm talking about. And it's just been really, really hard. But either way, I'm trying to push out as much content as I can. You know, every single video I make, I work really hard on. So I really appreciate all the views on all the videos I've made. I really, really do appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for coming to the table, and I'll see you all next time.